Liar. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Thursday, July 11th. What the hell day is it? July 1st. Sure. July 1-1 is what it says on my screen here. July 11th, 2024. Plenty going on in the background as well today. A yogurt crisis, as a matter of fact. So those of you who are big fans of the diner ambiance, I guess you are in for a treat. Now you're in for a treat as we scramble around trying to find out what's going to happen for breakfast today. Shortened show today, because we got to go look for things for breakfast, I guess. Only going to go till 10 o'clock because I hate everything and I don't really want to talk about it. But we've got an appointment here that we got to take care of. But I'm sitting around waiting for the appointment, so we might as well have a bit of a discussion. And the important thing is that this not disrupt Greg's schedule. And so Greg will do his usual segment, although we did give him the excuse yesterday to just go to 9:30 because I thought the deal was I only did half the show. Well, we'll see. There's too much news, I guess, and we'll have to probably have to spend that hour going over the Raft O stories, and that is just fine by me. That's my favorite kind of show. And production staff here are excited to only have to edit half a show as well. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then I thought, oh, well, now I'm going to make it. I announced it last night in the office. And there was great excitement at only having to edit a half of the usual time of the show. So I figured I should try and make it as challenging as possible for him to edit it. And I'm going to cough and sneeze and probably make all sorts of unseemly noises just to try to give him a larger challenge inside of 1 hour. I thought about that last night, and now as the opportunity to actually make those noises on the air presents itself, I find myself shying away from it. And who wants to make extra work? All right, so here we go. Plenty to round up today. Lots of impact from yesterday's discussion, I think, of the polling news. I think we were well prepared, not only hearing the warning shots from, that Greg was passing along from the pollsters, that the polls themselves aren't good. We should be prepared in the coming weeks for polling that looks worse because of what Greg explained to us, that basically the baseline information against which others will tweak their polling based on the demographics revealed in yesterday's summary polling tends to argue for another couple weeks of polling that skews heavily towards Republicans and Trump, or maybe just Trump and not Republicans in general. We'll see. But somehow, somewhere along the line, yesterday's polling came out with demographic numbers that were a huge surprise among the younger vote, and their interest in Trump and Republicans caught everyone by surprise and is either wrong and not there, or has somehow stealthily manifested itself, or they only somehow called Republican households. I have no idea exactly how this anomaly is going to be explained, but I thought of it this morning because I happened to see on Blue Sky social media Brendan Nyhan retweeting or reposting, or whatever the hell we're calling it. I hate the skeet word. That just doesn't come off the tongue all that easily for me. But anyway, sending around a screenshot of what looks to be maybe something grabbed from Twitter, in which, who are we looking at here? Omar Wasow, is that right? W-A-S-O-W, saying, impressed by how many, quote, in this house we believe science is real, unquote, folks. Get it? The kind of person who would say, in this house we believe science is real. Impressed by how many of those people now, he says, reject all polling, which is an interesting thing to say because, of course, that's not a scientific statement, but okay, whatever. Brendan Nyhan trying to, he's making a good point in that, okay, well, we can't just go around saying we don't believe in polling. But here this struck me because of how well prepared I think we were from yesterday's show, thanks to Greg's discussion of it. It's not that anybody's rejecting all polling. It's that we actually found out a little bit about how the secret sauce of polling actually works and what we might expect in the future. And I think probably most people who believe science is real and believe in polling would have looked at yesterday's results and said, those are the numbers we got. I wouldn't mind seeing it rerun again to see if we can reproduce the same result, but that looks anomalous. This is the sort of thing that people who believe in science, whether in their house or office, their laboratory or what have you, would look at these results and say, this warrants another pass if we can make it happen, or we should put the results out and see if anybody else can replicate them because they are anomalous to us. That's not believing in science. But of course, without that information, just stomping your feet and saying the polls aren't right, well, you may turn out to be correct, but it won't be on a scientific basis. That's true. What surprised me was how sweeping the generalization was here. In this house, we believe in anecdotes and sweeping generalizations. How about that? To say that, really? Somebody saw somebody else say... I bet they didn't actually see anybody say in this house we believe in science, but they may know them to be that kind of person. And then they argue about the validity of the polls, and I don't know that that's really I reject all polling. Seems like a bit of a straw man for a in this house we believe in science kind of person, which I'm guessing that he is, and that's how he's exposed to however many it is that he sees. And I don't know how many he sees. An interesting follow-up question would have been, that is interesting. Can you show me the crosstabs on how many in this house we believe in science? We believe science is real. People were identified and how many responded to your poll, or are you just winging it? I don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting. I think that he should withdraw the statement, but he was just trying to have a bit of morning fun, I assume, if it was a morning tweet. It could be from yesterday. I don't know. Greg Dworkin is here. He has some stories from yesterday, some from today, and we only have an hour to do it, which is normal, but it feels rushed to me. So let's get started. Good morning, Greg. How are you?
Hi. Well, actually, we also have a lot of stories for tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
okay.
We covered
we're
yesterday,
do one of those
today, and tomorrow, which was a great old movie. But let's start with some good news, because I think it's important to have.
All right. Yeah, this crap news is terrible.
So this is from the AP. U.S. inflation slowed again in June and sign that price pressures continue to ease. In fact, some prices actually dropped. So it's not just disinflation, which is the slowing of inflation, but it's de-inflation, which is dropping of prices. Deflation.
Yes, it's D for...
D for Democrat.
Deflation. Yeah,
because what happens
is
the Democrats fix things.
Perfect.
And then resentful voters still sometimes elect Republicans who claim success based on what the Democrats did, and then they break things. And resentful voters elect Democrats who then fix things. And so we may be in one of those cycles. We'll see.
I believe it.
But Ben Wickler points out, chair of the Democratic Party in Wisconsin, inflation's falling, crime is falling, border crossings are falling, climate emissions are falling, inequality is falling. Meanwhile, energy production is growing, real wages are growing, jobs are growing, unions are growing, the stock market is growing. And as the AP reports, the number of Americans filing for unemployment benefits falls last week and remains at healthy levels. So this is the background for why I think Democrats remain competitive no matter what kind of family feud you are reading about today.
It's the stupid economy.
Yep.
I think.
Jim Sciutto points out the prices fell in June for the first time since the start of the pandemic. Consumer prices dropped to 0.1% on a monthly basis, helping to bring the annual rate of inflation to 3%, down from 3.3% in May.
That was not
Economists were expecting a rise. They didn't get it. This points to rate cuts in September.
Oh, well, unless reasons. Yeah.
So that's what's going on in the background.
Okay.
So if you look at fundamentals are favoring the incumbent. However, not everything's about fundamentals. So there's some new and important polling out in the last 24 hours, which haven't really incorporated yet the underlined baseline lean Republican stuff that we talked about the other day, assuming that's correct.
Yes, and that is a big assumption. I mean, you have to kind of make that assumption coming right out of the box. But like I said, you might say, we might ask a colleague to run something like this again and double check.
So Split Ticket runs a poll Survey finds Trump at 41% of the vote. This is all post-debate. Biden at 40%. Independent Robert F. Kennedy at 10%. And Cornel West, Jill Stein, and Chase Oliver, whoever that is, each at 1%. But they also posted a two-way head-to-head. And here Biden leads Trump 47-46. And we find an electorate that's quite stable, polarized, just like it was in the last election. Biden wins his own 2020 voters by 91.5. Trump wins his 2020 voters 93.4. It is the 2020 non-voters that are far more fluid and much more Republican-leaning. This is a notable change in the way that less engaged voters tended to lean in previous cycles. In 2020, they are estimated to be significantly more Democratic than the rest of the electorate. That was probably wrong.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, they didn't vote, so you can't tell, but it was probably wrong. The Republican advantage among those voters is a relatively new development. It's been one of the cornerstones of Donald Trump's polling strength in this cycle. If that's wrong, then the polls are wrong. So split ticket, basically very close race. Data for Progress has a 1-point lead for Biden, I believe. Not a very good poll, but there it is. But a very good pollster comes out today, ABC Ipsos. And let me just give you a flavor of it by giving you the headlines in the Washington Post, which was a co-sponsor with ABC. Most Democrats want Biden to drop out, but overall race is static.
Okay.
Or to put more of a fine point on it, okay.
Yeah.
Trump 47, Biden 46, Trump plus 1. The last poll had Trump plus 2.
All right, more or less the same.
So more or less the same. Harris 49,
same,
Trump 46. That's new, and that's interesting.
Yeah, they don't usually do that. And
okay, however,
they have reason.
85% of voters say Biden's too old for a second term.
Oh.
62% of Democrats say Biden should step aside. 67% of black voters would be satisfied with Harris taking over.
Okay. How irate would they be
now
if
that's
she
in a
didn't?
poll with Biden behind by point.
Okay. Well, yeah. Although I assume that I don't know whether they delved any further, but I don't know. I don't even know if we really need to study it scientifically. I mean, ask those people. Okay, but let's say you don't get your way with the step aside thing. What are you going to do? Oh, well,
you're going to vote for Biden.
Yeah,
but I guess my point is back in February, like 2/3 of voters thought Biden was too old. Now it's 85. I mean,
yes.
There's nothing in here that gives you confidence that he's persuading people who otherwise weren't going to vote for him to vote for him. He's keeping the people who were going to vote for him.
Yeah. It's an interesting formulation too, right? I mean, I believe he's too old. Well, what do you mean when you say too old? Older than you want, or you're not going to vote for him because it's not going to work because he's too old? Oh, no, the other one. I wish he was younger.
Right.
Oh.
Well, again, you got to separate those things. Are you going to vote for him is very different than what do you think?
Yes, sure.
Right? And the what do you think,
and
he does really poorly.
Yeah. I mean, I wish that wasn't the case.
So has that changed? It's actually gotten worse. Given the amount of money that the Biden campaign has already put into this, that's not good. And so if you're looking at what about those undecided voters in the last few days or a few weeks, which often will decide a close election, that's not good. That's the point I'm trying to make here.
Yes.
So you should look at this and say, well, this is a static. Biden is competitive. He's only losing by 1. That's great. Well, it's great if you wanted to prevent the bottom from falling out, but it's not great if you want to win the election.
Oh, well, I wanted to do that too.
Well, yeah. So,
no one
I
asked me.
mentioned that.
I'm a double liker on those.
Right.
So, yeah, all right, well, that's all right. It is what it is. You have to have this news.
You have to have the news. Okay.
But the prices are lower for the news. That's the
Now, here's another one. Within that ABC Washington Post poll today, among Democratic voters, if Biden steps aside, who would you want to run?
Santa Claus.
29% Kamala Harris, 7% Gavin Newsom, 4% Michelle Obama, 3% Pete Buttigieg, 3% Gretchen Whitmer, less than 2% everybody else. Sure. 15% not sure, and 31% said, stop asking me this stupid question.
The Target dog, the Quaker Oats guy. Sure, lots of people we all love. But
now you'll
Michelle
come to your
Obama.
own conclusion, you know.
All right.
And people in Congress are coming to their own conclusion. The idea that Biden has stopped the bleeding and that like nobody's asking for him to step down, that's not true.
All right.
Things have actually gotten worse. Yesterday it was George Clooney representing Democratic donors with input from Barack Obama. He's reported to have discussed it with Obama. Obama didn't advise him. Obama didn't counsel him.
No.
But he definitely let Obama know this was coming before he put it out. So the idea that George Clooney is some loose cannon running around with no ties to the Democratic establishment, that's not true.
Well, no. I mean, he's got those ties. I don't know that he's
got the
a
suit,
member
he's
of
got
Congress.
the ties. You know,
yeah, that's true.
He's got the socks.
Honestly, if he put, D California after his name, about 60% of America would say, I didn't even know he was in Congress, George Clooney. That's great.
He's a senator. Who knew?
Yeah.
So the
work.
point there is that Clooney is the stalking horse writing what the others are sort of afraid to say openly, even though they think that privately. And the thing about politics you have to remember is you don't go into politics because you're brave.
All right. Well,
as one of my Republican
I
friends said in response to that is, no, you go into politics because you're a masochist.
I guess so, right. I mean, there's an element of bravery. Are you sure you want to subject yourself to this? Yes. Well, that's
it's the old yes minister point. Whenever the civil servant, Sir Humphrey, wanted to persuade the minister to not do something, the minister would propose something the civil servant was against, and the civil servant will say, "Oh, you're taking that position? That's very brave of you," and you could see the horror.
Brave?
What do you mean brave?
Yeah, all right.
Well, 87% of your constituency opposes this. Oh my God, we have to do something.
Yeah.
So no, bravery is not there. Members of Congress, consensus Democrats, including members of the Congressional Black Caucus who publicly support him, think Biden should step down. But they don't want to say that because it's a collective action problem. Nobody wants to be first. That's why I'm guessing that if there is an actual declaration he has to step down, which everybody's watching this 5:30 p.m. NATO press conference even more than the debate, because the debate nobody knew what to expect, but now people are looking for something.
Okay.
Should something happen, should Biden stumble, should calls come for him to step down, it'll probably come from somebody like Nancy Pelosi, who's insulated from, well, how could you say that? I'm turning on her. Well, too late.
Right. And it doesn't, I won't.
At her age and at her status, that's not
you
going to
see, that's
or
funny.
Jim Clyburn for similar reasons.
Yeah. I mean, it's odd. I mean, I guess they could protect themselves that way. As an aging person myself.
Yeah, exactly.
I still
However, if one of those people say that, the dam's going to break.
All right.
And for people who thought this was over,
Thursday.
It's not over.
Okay.
So let me talk to you a little bit about some of those stories that go along with that. This is Punchbowl News. Happy Thursday morning. There's no oxygen for any topic in Washington except for Biden's political future. House and Senate Democrats are being continually barraged with questions over whether the president should stay on the ballot. Today will be another massive moment for Biden and his allies turned critics. First, a trio of the president's closest confidants will have a lunchtime meeting with Senate Democrats at the DSCC. This meeting comes at the invitation of Schumer, who said precious little publicly, but senators have already grumbled that I don't know why we're talking to the advisors. What a waste of time. Biden has to come. He can't. He's in the middle of a NATO meeting.
Well, yes. That's a bad objection.
If Biden is choosing NATO over Senate Democrats, that's actually a wise decision and one you want your president to make. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you can't skip this.
Right. So then Biden will hold a 5:30 p.m. press conference. For those of you who don't watch press conferences, you need to know that the time not to watch it is 5:30.
Got it.
Oh, and for those of you who do want to watch it, it's still 5:30.
Right. There should be a delayed airing of something better.
Tester won't be at the advisory meeting because he has a conflict, so will Biden. And Peter Welch became the first Senate Democrat to openly call on Biden to step aside.
Yes, and also for
Now,
100%
the funny
organic
thing is,
creamery butter.
I just found this amusing. Do you remember when Peter Welch was a congressman and not a senator?
I do.
Well, he's got the exact same constituency. There's
That's
not one
right.
more person he represents. However, it's way more important that he says it as a senator than as a congressman, because you tell me why. I don't know.
Has 4 more years to live it down than the other job.
Right.
That's basically it. You move. We're talking
He's a
about
senator.
Vermont and an at-large congressional seat, because there's only one congressional district in the state, and so the electorate is exactly the same, but you only have to run for your job every 6 years instead of every 2. It's a big improvement. There's another guy from Vermont, ran for president, had the same thing.
Yeah. So Michael Bennett from Colorado said publicly he doesn't think Biden can win, but Welch is the first one to say, and he should step down.
Okay.
Richard Blumenthal has publicly
the
questioned
first?
the president's theory of the case and seeking another term. So that's the second Connecticut prominent politician after Ned Lamont, who has doubts.
Yeah, then he went windsurfing.
The House Democratic Caucus, meanwhile, is in turmoil over Biden. Earl Blumenauer from Oregon joined the growing list of House Democrats who want to see Biden give up his efforts. And there's a spreadsheet going on here, and so there's going to be a lot that happens after that press conference. So we'll wait and see what happens with that.
All right, Earl Blumenauer can say, as a fellow bicycle enthusiast, it pains me too.
Right. David Rothkopf wrote on Twitter, the recent discussion about Biden's gone through phases. The first was about the debate performance, and then the second was about the campaign. And now we're in the third phase, which is like, what do we do? These concerns are largely from political professionals, not commentators. They turn not just on setbacks since the debate, but on the fact that the campaign was seemingly spinning its wheels even beforehand. I mean, I have to say, it's not a good look when the campaign is trying to refute and attack George Clooney, which is what they were doing yesterday.
Yeah, that's not great. You want to spend your time elsewhere.
You do. I sense a bunch of it is from worried folks down the ballot. These conversations seems to be continuing. This is the important point. They seem to be continuing despite Biden's repeated statements he's definitely running and in it for the long haul, and have not been helped by recent polling data, the Cook Report downgrade of Democrat battleground prospects, etc. Don't shoot the messenger here, he adds. I'm sharing this because it's what I've been hearing, and it explains why this has not gone away. I take the same position. You may not like what I'm saying. I know people at Daily Kos yell at me when I post this stuff, but this is what's going on. You need to know what's going on.
Yeah. Well,
people are just worried about losing, what we all should be, given the stakes.
Sure.
And he says, I still think Biden will survive as the candidate. Me personally, I'm not so sure. As for whether the Democrats will win in November, I'm hopeful, but the mood is darkening among many professionals I trust, which is one of the reasons why, you might need to shake things up.
Okay. Well, we won't shoot the messenger, but we might ask him to clean his pistol.
Well, yeah.
So
there's this trial going on right now about stuff like that.
Oh.
But anyway, Alex Baldwin's trial has started. 5 bad arguments why Biden should keep running, writes Jonathan Cohen, and 1 good reason.
All right.
And there's some bad reasons why he should still run. He beat Trump before. Past performance is no guarantee of future results.
It's not an awful reason.
The polls are wrong. That's possibility,
shaky.
but it's a terrible thing to hang your hat on. The potential alternatives are worse. You don't know that. Look at today's ABC Harris poll. Poll on Harris, not
I see.
Harris,
alternative Democratic candidates. Because the other alternative, when I think of that, you mean the other guy, Trump? No, he is worse.
Right. Elites are trying to hijack the party. They're actually not. According to the ABC Washington Post poll, it's Democratic voters by a clear majority.
Yeah, well, it's like 60-something%. All right.
Right. And then the best reason.
The
stakes are too high to risk fudging this.
And
the truth is, we don't know what would happen if he steps down. We don't know if it's stronger or weaker position. We have a strong economy. Biden is still running okay in the polls. We don't know.
Right.
You have to acknowledge that if you're going to acknowledge making a change. But you also have to acknowledge the only possible change is to Harris.
I think that's a minimum. And thankfully, I think everybody has kind of moved to that, even though they still are polling. Well, what do you think about Gavin Newsom?
Yeah,
maybe George Clooney, but yeah.
The other
thing
you have to acknowledge,
I'm fine with that. I mean,
at the same time, is that
backup.
Biden is truly, completely, and totally resentful of how he's being treated by the press, and he has excellent and good reason. And here's another example. Peter Hassan posts MSNBC's Chuck Todd says Biden's refusal to step aside has made him, quote, rethink a lot of the Biden biography. I still can't believe he ran for president in the first place, given that his family was in crisis in 2018. You look at what's happened. I can't believe he's put his family through this. And now, in clinging to this, I think the entire narrative on Biden's going to change, and that everything's always been about his ambition, and his ambition comes first. That's what Chuck Todd said. Josh Marshall heard that and said, what a remarkable thing to say. What an emblem of what a feeding frenzy is all about. The current situation leads Todd to suspect Biden's decision to run for president in 2020 was evidence of poor character. Biden ran. He was left for dead. He beat Trump. He passed a remarkable amount of progressive legislation in a tie Congress. It may be time for Biden to step aside, but his contempt for the D.C. pundit class, well earned.
Okay. You know what? There you go. I'm with him on that one. Yeah, that was rather rude and rather astonishing, too. I mean, from the class of people who, can't bring themselves to say anything negative about when a major and polarizing political figure dies. Well, if you can't say anything nice, right? This is not the time, but he's not dead.
I like the one that said, if you can't say anything nice, sit next to me.
That's right. That's a favorite. Okay. Well, we're halfway through the show already. I can't believe it. And
we'll have to decide what to do at the other end.
Yeah, right.
You want your show back, or what do you want?
We're approaching normal podcast lengths with this show today. No, I don't want this show back. Let's continue to give it to you. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I'm just contemplating how to end the show when the top of the hour rolls around and figuring out what the logistics of it are. It'll be interesting to see. Greg was telling me, that's the music that if I'm still listening to the show on the live stream, that's where your voice fades out and no one can hear you. And I realized on the podcast version of the podcast side of it, I do the mix there and I can manipulate it, but I guess there's an auto fade on it, and I guess it comes in a little earlier than I thought, because those are usually, I save the best stuff for the last 30 seconds of the show, and you're all missing out, and you should download the podcasts, I guess.
Yeah, you could do a show with the last 30 seconds of the last 10 years so that everybody can get what they've been missing.
Yeah, and that would probably fill all of the week I'm on vacation, because we've been doing this for 1,000 years.
So this is interesting. Because it's not intentional, but it's a bit of confirmation about what I've been describing. And it comes from none other than Ron Klain.
Okay.
Now, Ron Klain is no longer chief of staff. He's no longer in the Biden administration, but a longtime confident supporter of Joe Biden. And Greg Sargent got him for an interview.
You're out, Ron. Yes.
And Greg says, so the current 538 polling averages, Trump leads Biden by 2. Nationally, 3.4 points in Pennsylvania, 1.6 points in Wisconsin, 0.7 in Michigan. To win, Biden has to take those states. Biden trails by a lot more in Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia, up 5 points. And I want to know, Ron, do you contest the general depiction of the current state of the race? And the point is, and you can listen to the whole rest of the podcast or read the transcript if you want to, but the point is, Klain says, I think they're in the ballpark.
Okay.
And then he says, well, I still think we have a path to win, but he's confirming Biden's not doing that well. And that is driving everything in Congress, because congressional Democrats don't like to lose. They don't want to lose.
Yeah. As it turns out, none of them want to lose.
Right. And so self-interest is driving why they seem disloyal.
Okay.
If you will.
Yeah. If that's how you take it.
If that's how you look at it.
Okay. Yeah, well, worrisome. Although, again, I wish there was some sort of guarantee. Like, if we, I can't, we make a switch as suggested, it doesn't work. Can we go back and try again with, no, I have to risk it all on this choice about which we know nothing. All right. That is worrisome. That'll worry any
I want to give you
Democrat.
some other flavor of this. I mean, and these are stories in the last 24 hours and not just recycling stuff since Monday or Sunday. This is yesterday in the Huffington Post. Joe Biden was maybe going to survive this. Then came the last 24 hours. As George Clooney goes, so go congressional Democrats. And again, to remind people, what Clooney did is he wrote an op-ed, I think, in the New York Times.
He should have made a movie.
Yeah, well, I think he has.
Oh.
The day began ominously for the president when former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi appeared on MSNBC's Morning Joe and spoke as if Biden were still deciding. Time is running short. We talked about that on the show yesterday. Biden says, I'm in. It's over. I've decided. Oh. And Pelosi says, you really need to decide. And she keeps saying that, and Schumer has said that, and
it's not right.
Clyburn has said that. Hint, hint, hint. I know you decided. Try deciding again, and this time come up with the right answer.
Reply hazy. Try again. Okay.
Right. Biden also lost a major ally in Hollywood when actor George Clooney, who just a month ago hosted a $30 million fundraiser for the president, wrote a devastating opinion article in the New York Times calling on Biden to drop out after his painfully poor debate performance. And what he said is, I was just at a fundraiser with him. He is not the person he was even just a couple of years ago. And that's what's so devastating.
Well, all right. That's the sort of thing that if you were wondering, well, what, sure, he's politically astute and he's politically connected, but really what makes it a good thing for George Clooney to be giving this commentary?
I was there. I saw it with my own lying eyes.
That's something, I guess. Not that I've read his op-ed. You know, it's going to take me a couple of weeks to get around to that.
The sad folly of Joe Biden's defiance. His message to congressional Democrats is a prime example of the power of arrogance, writes Mr. Walter Shapiro, one of my favorite, he's been around forever, columnists. This is in Roll Call.
This is a Chuck Todd bent.
Yeah. Polling analyst Nate Silver in a New York Times op-ed last week pointed out that Democratic Senate candidates in rough races are running better than Biden in 46 of the 47 surveys. In fact, based on this premature polling, they're on target to survive the drag at the top of the ticket. And there's no reliable House polls, but it's easy to imagine because it's too early. House polls are expensive, and they generally don't have that kind of money. But it's easy to imagine that House Democrats facing difficult races in November will pivot to arguing that blocking a GOP takeover of Congress is the only way to resist the excesses of Donald Trump. Vengeance is mine, second term. And that's why you see House Democrats doing exactly that, like the dude up in Maine who said, you know, he may win, but I got to survive. So I live in a Trump district, so let me just explain to you I'm okay, and you're okay, and we're all okay with this. But you have to like me because I'm the check for the balance.
You're not, but I mean, it's a thing.
He's not, but that's
yourself.
the line they're going to take.
Yeah, but you know, as you were describing it, I guess I came to I guess the realization of, well, why, you know, in addition to the usual motivation of political survival, there is, as you were reminding everybody, since this is the revenge platform for Trump, maybe it's just regular, literal survival that people need to actually worry about. And the stakes of this race are, should Trump prevail, I am, as a Democratic member of Congress, I am a prime candidate for being like arrested and gulagged, and maybe we shouldn't have that happen.
Right.
That let's see, you have a point there, but okay.
So he concludes with saying, this is not a moment to say, as the Democrats did in the 1980s, that Mondale and Dukakis are laudable public figures and we can't abandon them. The issue isn't what Biden has done as president. The issue is what Biden can do in the months ahead to turn this train wreck of an election around. And alas, I think the answer is to withdraw because the stakes are too high for continued headless
too. I wouldn't want he
wrote headless defiance of reality. I think he meant heedless, but whatever.
No.
I shouldn't correct him. He's older than I am.
Yeah, right. You know, neither would be good. I think he's in the right ballpark.
Yeah. But in any case, you know, again, the thing that's driving this isn't disloyalty. It's not that we like family drama. We're really worried about the stakes of the election, and that matters. Right. Here's another piece in that regard. And again, just in the last 24 hours, and these are not hard to find. This one is from Mark Leibovich in The Atlantic. Come on, man. Does Joe Biden really understand the stakes?
Hi.
It's not about him. So he writes, it's now obvious that Biden has in no way internalized the disaster toward which he is defiantly ambling, or more to the point, toward which he is leading his party and his country, and for that matter, NATO, Ukraine, thousands of his yet not deported immigrants, and unprosecuted Trump enemies. He seems fully indifferent to any consideration beyond his own withered pride and raging ego.
Oh, come on.
I'll feel as long as I gave it my all and did the good job as I know I could do, Biden said in what was probably the most quoted line, and not favorably, from his Friday night interview with ABC's George Stephanopoulos. That's what it's all about, is how Biden ended the thought, which seemed to unleash a furious internal cry from so many viewers. No, that's not what this is all about. Come on, man. That's the answer that most concerned me, said Adam Schiff. This is not just about whether he gave it the old college try. So as of now, it looks as if Biden is committed to writing this out and staying the course, no matter how unfit he might be for the ugly course ahead. When you come to the conclusion he's not fit for the ugly course ahead, you react very differently to stuff you see and hear. And that's why this debate, this press conference tonight is so important. That's why the debate was important, and that's why the press conference is important tonight.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, I'm just trying to imagine what it must be like to be making this decision. And we're making all sorts of assumptions, because what else are you going to do, about what's going into the decision. And I'm not particularly pleased to be reading and continually hearing that the number of people taking the Chuck Todd tack on this. Oh, well, you know what? I changed my mind. It's entirely about his outrageous ego, especially when, again, as with everything else, we say, well, how you want to find an outrageous ego? There's another guy running if we need an outrageous ego story. But I'm just imagining what it must be like if you are, in fact, in better shape than people think you are, and you're like, I took some Benadryl and it really screwed me up. But I mean, come on. But, you have to be able to demonstrate that. And I guess that hasn't happened. But I'm just sort of thinking about what it must be like in your head.
It's not a one-off.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
That's the problem.
What if he really is in that shape? What do you do?
Would you know? And in your head, would you be convinced of that? Can anybody be convinced that you've reached this point? But I'm just imagining what it must be like to think you're not at that point and to be like, you're really the president of the United States? You're really going to make me drop out months ahead of the actual election because, every day you get up in the mirror and look in the mirror and say, I'm fine. I'm the same guy I always was. But yeah, that's what people are trying to tell.
Here's the deal. And let me,
it's amazing.
As Joe Biden likes to say, and let me tell you this in plain talk from what I think real voters feel. Mm-hmm. Okay. In real life, me personally.
All right.
Took the car keys away from my late father-in-law when I didn't think he should be driving anymore.
Yeah. Everyone has either done or imagined doing that.
And that's why it hits so close to home.
I see. Yeah. I'm fine. I can still drive. Yeah. That's relatable too. Okay. I mean, this didn't make up my mind about anything, but it's good information.
No, but I mean, it's a question. Do you think he's able to drive or do you don't? If you think he can still drive, you don't do that. If you don't think he can drive, you do it.
Yeah. Or, and I guess there's also room for, you probably could, in a pinch, one more time, but why risk it is the thing,
Somebody's going to get hurt. We're not doing it.
Yeah. That's true. And and like that with cars, right? With the consequences of driving one day too long is,
enormous.
A
day too short, okay.
Right.
One day too long, somebody gets hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Not a difficult decision.
Yeah. All right. That's a
difficult
point.
to implement, but not a difficult decision to make.
Right. Like, I don't know where he keeps the keys. Is that the only car? I don't know. But okay. Interesting.
So while that's going on,
yeah.
What if I told you that two governors of these United States of America said they're not voting for their party's candidate?
I would say, are they independents? I don't know. What? Yeah, okay. I would say, first I'd say who? And then,
one is Governor Cox of Utah. The other is Brian Kemp of Georgia.
Oh, okay. Well, Brian Kemp has, the gulag problem. So, yeah, he's not going to vote for Trump because he's headed to Guantanamo.
Cox says he'll write somebody else in.
I see. All right. Well, good. I would never have guessed him, but
Right.
okay.
So, I mean, that's going on. Trump is
Great.
really bad. And the reason Biden, arguably, is doing okay in these polls, that is to say, he's only trailing by a point, or he's only ahead by a point, whatever. He needs to be ahead more than that to win.
Is that Trump is bad?
Yes. And so that doesn't go away because at the end of the day, no matter who the Democrats run, Trump is bad.
Yes.
Here's
Terrible.
another example, and this is certainly breaking into mainstream news. Trump claims not to know who is behind Project 2025. A CNN review found at least 140 people who work for him are involved with it.
Right. Well, that's 140 coffee boys, as
Yes,
you know.
but, there it is, CNN. Interesting.
Well, they're
it's on
disputing
CNN, published on the web.
Yeah.
And I say interesting because there's all sorts of talk about CNN starting to fire people and moving away from cable TV that nobody watches to try to make an internet presence. Maybe they'll broadcast on the internet.
INN. You
Yeah.
know, they're going to have a problem with that. I mean, well, I guess if you can, lots of companies are doing that. We're going to drop what it actually stands for and just become the initials.
I think it's OHCNN. Oh, CNN.
Yeah. Well, the C is cable,
Or
but never
CNN
mind that.
the little I, right?
I mean, KFC is, they don't bother with the words anymore.
Right.
So I guess you could do that, and that's interesting too. And I guess, although I'm concerned that a news organization that fires all the people and relies on, if they're going to do like we're going to use AI, then they're just going to disappear. That's fine, but does a network like that believe stuff like when Trump says, "I don't know who wrote it. Maybe AI wrote it." I don't know if he can get away with that, but this article.
I didn't say maybe AI wrote it. I said, hey, maybe I wrote it.
That could be him. But they're clearly disputing it. They went and looked at the number of people who were involved who came from out of the administration. But I mean, it's a minor point, but it could be true that he doesn't know who wrote it because he doesn't know anything at all ever.
Yeah,
but
well,
he
that's
knows, we know who the people are, and that's really more important. And
Right.
whether
and
you
that's
know,
why
I don't care.
Dave Weigel's reporting puts this in a little different perspective to make that point.
Okay.
He says Trump's national conservative allies plot a revenge administration. He doesn't say Trump did it. Trump doesn't know what he's doing. But his national conservative allies definitely do.
They do. He doesn't know what he's doing, but he's the one who's selling this whole thing as a revenge thing. So
Well, he doesn't care as long as he gets elected and he's not in jail, to be honest.
Yes. Right. And it's ridiculous. And I'm glad everybody is seeing through it right away. That the trying to disavow it isn't going to work.
Well, this is worse than the usual Project 2025 stuff.
I see.
On Monday afternoon, a few blocks from the White House, conservative legal scholars discussed how to strike back against Donald Trump's enemies. These subversives, they said, had waged lawfare against their Republican nominee, thrown out 2020 election challenges, blocked scrutiny of a Biden administration that might be gone in 6 months. What could conservatives do about that? We've got to start impeaching these judges for acting in such an unbelievably partisan way from the bench, said John Eastman, a California attorney who was disbarred last year over working with Trump.
He's not an attorney. What are you talking about?
People who have used this tool against people like John or President Trump have to be prosecuted by Republican or conservative DAs in exactly the same way for exactly the same kinds of things until they stop, said Berkeley law professor John Yoo.
Oh, my.
I don't say
that,
I don't say that we should be the mafia, said Will Chamberlain, a senior counsel at the Article 3 Project, who formerly worked for Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. But as a political party, if we aren't willing to dish anything out, we can just expect to keep taking it.
More fantasy, obviously.
The
But,
MAGA thinkers, policy entrepreneurs, and conservative activists who gathered on Monday were over the moon about Trump's odds of victory, completely unbothered by his recent efforts to distance himself from their agenda. They expected to return to power soon, assume influential positions, and use the federal government to punish their political enemies. Just so that's the background as to what's going on.
Terrific. And
This is what
great for liberty.
Democrats ought to be running on. Great economy, good news about the border, good news about crime, good news about everything. And by the way, these guys want to take away everything that you think you have a right to
Yes.
including, your own body. They want to monitor your pregnancy. They don't want to allow you to do in vitro fertilization. They don't want you to have contraceptives. They're bad people. This is what we should be running and talking about right now. To me, that's one of the main arguments as to why Biden should step away.
Yeah.
Until he does, it's going to be about Biden and his age.
Yes. Although even if that's entirely necessary, once he were to step away, the next couple of weeks would be endless cycles about examination of who's stepping in rather than fighting over what the actual
Well, they would
issues
try,
are.
but it's not the same thing. It's not the feeding frenzy. It's
Well,
not the.
I hope so. Anyway, but this one isn't great.
Well,
so
part of the
worth
reason the
looking
feeding
away.
frenzy continues
They
is
think
like
they can win it.
90% of the material they're using are Democratic leakers.
Yes, well, that's
That
another
goes
issue.
away.
I guess unless, some of the leakers become, why wasn't my person selected? But now that we're coalescing
that's the one
around
they
Harris, then, hopefully that goes away too. This is it's rather remarkable. And I was thinking, another formulation of it, as you set it up, you can even make the comparison more direct, right? The economy's looking good, crime coming down, all good news. All the people who created those conditions, these guys not only want to reverse all those conditions, but they want to put they want to claim credit for it while putting the people who did it in prison.
Yeah, exactly right.
So that they, and usually, if you're one of those people who's like, well, that's the cycle. Republicans come in and wreck everything, and then Democrats are elected and they fix everything. Except this time, they're going to execute all the people that fix things.
Yeah.
That's
another data
not
point
great.
on why I still think this is a winnable race for Democrats.
All right.
If we can refocus. This is from the Washington Post. These GOP women begged the party to abandon abortion, then came backlash. The fight waged at the Texas Republican Convention highlights the deep divisions on abortion within the Republican Party. Basically, these pro-life people said, and anti-choice people said, we want you to stop talking about this because it loses us elections. And the rest of the Republican Party said, no way, we haven't gone far enough. Don't
Trump
you dare abandon us.
Trump says he's listening to the women.
Yeah,
but he's actually not. I mean, he wants to run the way they want to run, and then he wants to govern the way that the men want to run.
Right.
So you should be aware of that, and you probably guessed it.
Right. And the women appreciated how Trump had handled the abortion issue, which is to say lying about it. Refusing to endorse a national abortion ban despite intense pressure from national anti-abortion groups. I think he has his pulse on how most Americans feel. As a state, he doesn't. As the state convention neared, more and more women from Harris County joined the ranks of Right to Win, along with a few men. This is the group that wants to move on from abortion, but of course they're divided on what to do. The backlash was harsh. When a group member spoke, audience members fired back with a string of personal attacks, questioning their faith, questioning their values.
Sure.
One person told them they're going to burn in hell. Others insinuated they weren't real Republicans. This is something Democrats can exploit because it's happening nationally. But again, you have to be able to focus.
Okay. Well, focus is difficult now with everybody having ADHD.
Right.
And
meanwhile,
Adderall's
of course,
in short supply.
our media. Donald Trump goes for a more presidential tone for now. April 20th, 2016.
He's quiet.
Amber Phillips.
He's
Politics.
not saying much.
Trump's new tone wins praise, but only for 24 hours. March 3rd, 2017. Scott
What
Horsley.
tone?
President Trump will offer bipartisanship, unifying tone in State of the Union address by ABC News, January 2018.
Yeah.
And then
okay.
what
Yeah,
drove Trump's newfound somber tone on coronavirus, March 17, 2020. This comes, as Jim Vandehei writes in Axios, former President Trump is adjusting his agenda, his GOP platform, his vice presidential plans, even his debate style, to win over more than a half dozen persuadable voter groups in 7 states, his advisors tell us. So Christopher Ingram, independent reporter, retweeted those headlines and said it's 2016 and Trump has a new tone. It's 2017 and Trump has a new tone. It's 2018 and Trump has a new tone. It's 2020 and Trump has a new tone. It's 2024 and Trump has a new tone.
Yes.
By the way, ladies and gentlemen, listeners of all ages, Trump is the same Trump he has always been.
And maybe worse.
And maybe worse. Well, he was always worse, though. That's
yes, right. I mean,
it's just that he had a new tone. So, as Dana Bash likes to say,
tone
which is
worse.
why she blocked me on Twitter, this is the day that Trump became president.
Yeah. Right, exactly. He's actually right there. And that's the best, I don't know what, illustration of it. I mean, it is ridiculous, and it's a new tone isn't a new tone. And really, honestly, I don't know who, on the same day as the new tone, I'm softening on abortion. I see that Adam Serwer was writing on that particular point. Why is everybody buying into this idea that he is softening on abortion? But I have a new tone. The new tone was he was staying quiet and letting Biden thrash around. That would be a new tone, staying quiet. But when he is,
he
speaking,
wasn't quiet on Truth Social.
Yeah, when he actually speaks, he's not. The new tone is, I'm going to murder everybody. It's new-ish in tone. He's rarely said, I'm going to arrest and execute everybody on the other side.
Well, that's funny because he doesn't look newish.
No. Well, his daughter.
Oh, okay.
She's newish. Isn't she? Within the last couple of years, in fact. Anyway, yeah.
Well, she's more newish than he is.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no new tone. Obviously, that's garbage, and I think well illustrated. And the same thing has been said about his right. How many of these things does he do over and over again? And people are just, I don't know how nobody's keeping logs of this stuff. No, that whatever information you're requesting from me is coming out in 2 weeks. He's become president. Today's the day he finally became president. And, how many other things. He's just promised the same thing over and over again. And it's a total tell for him.
Well, I'm sending you a picture of yesterday's Milwaukee, Wisconsin Journal Sentinel front page print version.
Okay.
Okay.
There it is. How did you get
and
there?
There it is. And at the top, the big headline, Project 2025 author to be sponsor of the Republican National Convention.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to say is this really is breaking into the mainstream press.
Well, good.
This is a local, biggest paper in Wisconsin highlighting it.
Mm-hmm.
So there are things to stress. There are things to outline. I think it's important.
Yeah.
And, of course, as Ian Millhiser says, if you're concerned the press is paying too much attention to Joe Biden's age and not enough to Donald Trump's unfitness for the job of president, I know one very simple thing Biden could do that would take his age off the table.
One simple trick?
One simple little trick.
Yeah, that they don't want you to know.
That they don't want you to know.
Well,
that he doesn't want you to know.
Yeah, that's true. And he's the they now. So, okay. Well, I'm glad this is breaking through. I'm glad no one is buying into the 2025 thing. And I think the next stage of that ought to be Donald Trump is... Everybody now knows. Everybody knows Donald Trump is lying to you about his association with Project 2025. And it's horrific. And, of course, I would advise him to lie. It's so bad that if I were his advisor, I would tell him to lie about his association with it, too. And guess what? He's doing it. It's and by the way, easiest job in the world, convincing Donald Trump to lie to you about something. I didn't even have to do anything. So again, I'm going to end with Tim Alberta, who, by the way, has a whole article in The Atlantic about how Trump world is assuming there's going to be a massive landslide for them. Yes.
But only if they run against Biden. They're not really prepared to run against anybody else. But there's one piece of that. We've talked about this on the show, but he picked it out too and highlighted it, so I think it's important.
So it must be right.
This may be the most consequential development of 2024 you didn't know about. Trump's dismantling the RNC's ground game so he could divert money to a massive ego-stroking election integrity program. If it's neck and neck in November, remember this, and then here's a piece that he's reading from. The RNC under Ronna McDaniel, who chaired the National Party from early 2017 until Chris LaCivita's takeover, had become a frequent target of Trump's ire. He didn't like the party remain neutral in 2024. He was especially furious as McDaniel commissioned debates among the candidates, but what might have bothered him most was the RNC's priorities. McDaniel was continuing to pour money into field operations, stressing the need for massive get out the vote, but showed little interest in his pet issue of election integrity. Tell you what, Trump said to Susie Wiles and Chris Civita, I'll turn out the vote. You spend the money protecting it. So that's what they did. They took all the money out of get out the vote.
Okay. I mean,
I say okay, too. What a great decision. I totally support that. I hope they pull even more money out of it.
I guess so. All right. Well, we're for that. And
again, this is a winnable race.
Yes.
We haven't lost yet.
No.
We have to change direction.
We have to. Okay.
And there's that music.
Yes, that I warned you about, and now I realize.
Who's going to fade first?
I don't know, and I'm not certain. It's not the music that makes us fade either. Now I realize, okay, so the normal 1 minute break is coming up. So I don't even know whether we're going to get through all this music or not. But I will thank you, Greg, for hanging in there all the way through the hour today. Made the show very easy. And, and delivering some interesting takes on some news we don't really want to contemplate, but making it understandable and relatable. That's important in all of this. Oh, okay. No hard cutoff for today's show, so I might not fade. That's good news. And, all right, well, I will be back tomorrow. And tomorrow, if I have everything correct in my mind here, we'll welcome Ian Reifowitz back to the program.
Hey, hi, Ian.
Yeah, so we got that scheduled. We'll talk about that. Oh, I didn't get to today that Anna Paulina Luna is modifying her inherent contempt resolution against Merrick Garland, now seeking to fine him $10,000 a day for his contempt rather than actually jailing him. This is supposed to be a compromise position. Interesting stuff. We'll have to analyze what's going on there, and we can spend a little time on that on Friday, and then we'll see you again on Monday and start the whole thing all over again. What do you say?
All right, stay go.
Okay. Thanks very much, Greg. We'll see you then.
From networksradio.com, you have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
All right, so it's time for us to go. We'll be back again tomorrow. As I said, so if this is a surprise to you, hey, welcome to the show. We're leaving, and Justice Putnam will fill in with background briefing in place of our last hour, and then, of course, after that, the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, as usual, at 11 a.m. Eastern, or whatever time it may be where you are.